Thank you for joining us for this Local Decision 2017 Candidate Spotlight. I'm your host, Ben Hale. I'm glad to be sitting down with the Mayor of Lino Lakes, Jeff Reiner, to share a little bit about why he's running for re-election. You're running unopposed this year, Jeff, and I first just want to start with, why did you decide to run for re-election? You must feel like there's still more work to be done for the city.
Well, you answered my question. Last election kind of walked through a tornado because we had the public safety issue with adding fire service, and there were some people opposed to that. A lot of misinformation going around about that, and as it turned out, all the things that we said were accurate, and everything they said was inaccurate. The public safety department is working fantastically, and I'm sure we'll get into more of that, but so in the last couple of years, we launched the public safety fire service. We actually became a Yellow Ribbon Network city, which I'm very proud of. That was a lot of work. A lot of people from Lino Lakes, a lot of volunteer organizations came together. Basically, the Yellow Ribbon Network is to help military families. Everybody has the family members that are going overseas and going off to war, and then you have the families back at home. And so I know Hugo has a great, very successful program. I've always been a little jealous of them. Chuck Haas does a fantastic job there. He's a council member in Hugo. And when the opportunity came to us, and we were asked to, see if we could get one going, I went to the American Legion and talked with that group, and they were very pro wanting to work on it. So then I put them in charge of it. Somebody wants to do something, it's good to give them a job. So then we just had a great following from the Rotary Club, and I'm going to probably forget some people, YMCA, different churches around town, and the list goes on and on and on. Everybody jumped in and wanted to help. So basically the group helps out military families for those soldiers that are deployed. And it's just a great group, and so now it's the Lino Lakes Yellow Ribbon Network, so we got that done. We did a lot on road reconstruction, roads that have not been done or that have been waiting literally decades to get their road reconstruction done. We did the Shenandoah neighborhood recently, and now we're doing the Lamont neighborhood in West Shadow Lake Drive. I mean, literally decades they've been waiting, but we're going about it a little bit differently. It's kind of tough in Lino Lakes to get these roads reconstructed because we have a charter, which I support, but it's a little strong sometimes. But we find ways to get those things done for the city. One thing that I do want to spend a lot of time on in the next couple of years, and that's the Park and Trail Management Plan. This is something that I brought up to the City Council, maybe a month ago, and it was received well. There's some things we have to do as far as organization, but basically, we didn't have a comprehensive plan for maintenance on the parks and trails. It was kind of hit and miss when you had extra money. We've had some growth over the last 20 years. When you have growth and you have development, then you put in the parks with those developments, and now it's 20, 25 years later, and we've been doing some maintenance and some improvements and updates, but we're not keeping pace. Plus, with the last 8 years of a bad economy and depressed home values, which means less money to work with, it's been difficult. So I think it was 2003 we implemented what is called the Transportation Management Plan. And what that did is it basically did an inventory of all the roads in town. We've got about 100 miles. And put basically all their conditions down, what it would cost to do maintenance on them, and then put them on the calendar, because a plan isn't a plan until it's on a calendar. And then we knew exactly how much we needed to dedicate to the budget every single year to keep pace, and not only keep pace, but get ahead of things. So we did that, and so that's kind of where I took the idea from, to do the same kind of thing with parks and trails, to do an inventory of all of the play structures, basically all the trails, what condition they are, how old are they, what is it going to cost to replace them, repair them, have maintenance on them, and that's being done right now. We're starting the process, and then at the end of that we will dedicate to the budget every single year to keep pace with that. So that's one thing I want to do. And then also we have some things to do with Public Works. and I'm sure we'll talk about
Yep.
that too, kind of a hot topic in town, so I'll wait on that. But the War Memorial, we've been working on this now for, well, maybe a little over 2 years. It kind of came at the same time with the Yellow Ribbon Network effort. And so we need to find funds to get that done and do a little bit more work on that. We have a place for it. We have kind of a half design right now, and so that's another thing I'd like to get accomplished.
Okay.
So kind of a long answer, but.
Well, let's drill down on a few of those topics a little
Yeah.
bit. Let's start by talking a little bit about the city budget.
Sure.
As I've been reading through the budget documents, one thing I noticed that maybe stuck out to some people, and I asked some of your council candidates about it last night, is that use of reserve funds, or funds that come from prior year budget surpluses
Sure.
that get,
Yep.
and you use some in this year's budget, and there's more being in next year's proposed budget. Do you worry about the day where maybe those funds aren't there for you to use, or the future of if continuing to use those type of reserve funds in your budget planning process? Do you worry what that might mean down the road?
Yeah, so, okay, for funds, we got to be a little bit more specific because we have many funds. I mean, many. We've got about $35 million in reserves as a city. I think probably the funds that you're talking about are specifically two. It's going to be the closed bond fund and usually the budget reserve. So let's talk about each one of those. So the closed bond fund, okay, so what is that? We do a lot of bonding for roads and buildings and different things in town. And so let's say it's $1 million bond. What is always done is it's best practices to take 5% over the amount of the bond and have that in reserve for contingency.
Right.
So we do that. Typically, it's never used, and so you end up at the end of a bond paying it off, and then you end up with that 5%. So in the example I used, $1 million budget's going to have $50,000, and then that goes into the closed bond fund. You close out the bond, and then you take those dollars that are left over and you put it in the closed bond fund. So that's one. At the time that you close out the bond and you put it in that fund, it becomes a surplus because no longer is it a reserve for that bond. So it kind of changes identity. It becomes a surplus. Those dollars were taxed by the residents to put in that fund. And so what we like to do with that closed bond fund, we kind of look at that as a way to not have to tax the people for certain things. Sometimes you have spikes in budgets, and so we'll go to the closed bond fund, which I think it has maybe $1 million in it right now. It has had as much as $2 million in it, and so we'll go and we'll take from that and then take care of those spikes. Because a lot of times, if you raise taxes to handle a spike, it doesn't come back down. That's just the way government works. Once you go up, it's hard to come back down. So I like to smooth out those spikes by using what is really a surplus. The other reserve that we use once in a while is the budget reserve. Best practices is to keep at least 50% of your city budget in a reserve. So like our budget's around $10 million. So what we like to have is about $5 million in a budget. And the reason why is, you basically tax twice a year. And so that's the routine of where, if you want to call them revenues, they come in to pay bills. And so you want to keep at least half of that in a fund, just as best practices. I think state laws, maybe it's not state law. I think some cities, I might be wrong in the state law thing about being at least 30%, because I know that some cities like, St. Paul are below that. But then they're in a danger zone. So we look at that, and oftentimes it creeps up to 53%, 57%, and again, those are dollars that were taxed by from the residents, and you have this creeping amount in that budget reserve, and then we give it back. So an example of how we give it back. Okay, so we put up this new fire station. We had City Hall was built 20 years ago now. When we built the fire station, it was at 18 years. We knew that we were going to retire that bond for City Hall in 2 years. Now, that bill was about $550,000 a year. We knew that was for 20 years, and I believe I might get this wrong, but I think it was about $300,000 a year for 10 years, I think is what it is. Might be a little off on that, but generally that's what it is. So we knew that when City Hall was paid off in 20 years, 2 years from that point, we'd have this extra amount that we could actually reduce budget, or we could just transfer the cost of the fire department and then have $200,000 left over. So we took, out of the closed bond fund for 2 years, actually, is where it came from. We paid the first 2 payments on the fire station out of the closed bond fund, not spiking the people and having to raise taxes for those first 2 years. And now we're in the 3rd year. And now since the bond is retired for City Hall, we can transfer that over to the fire department cost and then actually have a couple $100,000 left over to help reduce the tax debt. So that's the budget stuff that's going on. Basically, it's those 2 that we use once in a while, and we try to, basically it's kind of giving people back their tax dollars when we feel that you tax them for a reason, but then, when you don't need it anymore, give it back. So.
And thank you for explaining that for viewers, because, when people just look and say, oh my goodness, they're using $325,000 of reserve funds, what are they doing? There might not be any money left. So thank you for explaining that for the viewers.
Well, people like to, first of all, maybe they don't know what they're talking about. That's a lot of times the case. And then there's a lot of political stuff that goes on all the time that people like to, oh, look what they're doing, and actually we're being responsible. So, but you're right. If it sounds bad, it's to somebody's advantage sometimes to, be ridiculous like that.
Let's talk about the public works.
Sure.
The future facility needs for Lino Lakes. I mean, there's ideas from brand new building, $12 million plus potentially, $10 million. The numbers, different people will tell you different numbers.
Yep.
There's ideas for, could there just be renovations of the current facilities? Could there be some simple maintenance, patchwork type fixes done? What do you think is the right pathway forward for public works facilities in Lino Lakes?
Well, there's a big push from staff to go new and just, blow down the old buildings and just build new. And the only thing I can think of why is because, Shoreview has a new one. Hugo got a new one 10 years ago. Oh, look what Blaine has. It's almost like trying to keep up with the Joneses, but do we really need to do that? No. The building is 46 years old, and it's part of Public Works responsibility is to maintain, repair, and keep up all of our buildings in town. And then it's the Public Works building that has fallen in disrepair. So, I mean, you got to kind of wonder what's going on there. It's their responsibility.
Have you gotten those answers?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, so the building is 46 years old. And I think that there's been a desire to want to have a new building. And so I'm not going to say that it's intentional, but because Rick DeGardner's in charge of that department and really does do a good job. But I'll tell you what, if I owned a company that had a bunch of buildings and assets, and there was somebody that was in charge of keeping them up to par, I'd be pretty mad about the fact that one then all of a sudden fell in disrepair. So, but Rick really does do a good job, so I'm not going to make any accusations. What should we do? Okay, so the building that we have right now is structurally good. I think that it needs not just some minor updates, but some decent updates. And that's going to cost money. I really don't think the right move is to knock it down and rebuild. I mean, one of those estimates we got is $13 million. And these things tend to creep up even from the point, I mean, everything seems to creep up. So what are we talking, maybe $14, $15 million? For a city our size to go spend that kind of money on a facility that we already have is ridiculous. What I think we should do and what we do need is to update that building because it needs some updates. I mean, we could just keep using it the way it is. I mean, the roofs don't leak. It's fine. It's in good condition. There's all kinds of people saying, oh, it's full of mold. It's never had mold. Never had mold, and people go around saying the employees are unsafe conditions and hazardous and blah, blah, blah. It's never had mold. Our employees have never been unsafe, and we just could keep using it. But, should we do an update? Yeah, for the future of Lino Lakes, yeah, we should be forward thinking and do something about it, give it some updates. We also need to put in some kind of structure for another building for holding our equipment. As we're growing as a city, we're buying more equipment. And every once in a while you have to add a pole barn or something, and we've been doing that. But now I think it's time to have maybe a more substantial structure to hold the equipment and the trucks and things that we have. So that's what I think we should do. Do we need to spend 13 million plus? No.
Is there a dollar number you're comfortable with? Is
Well, we'll see.
Is 6 million reasonable? Is it like?
I don't think we even need to spend that much. But without talking with other architects and stuff and start to kind of drill down on that, the right number is going to be the right number for not we're going to spend X and not above it. It's like let's look at what we need to do. What is it going to cost to update that building and give them a little bit better working environment. And then what's really important is to protect the equipment that we have. So we're taking a look at that. A building that a few of us council members liked over in Hugo, very nice facility, very nice building, and that one cost about $2 million. So maybe $2 million for that building, maybe it's $500 or $1 million in updates for the office building. I don't know. We'll have to get those estimates in, but it's probably in that ballpark, not $13-14 million.
Okay.
So,
Public Safety Department. You've now almost 2 years you've been living with the fact that now you have your own fire service, your own fire division of the Public Safety Department. As you kind of look back, as you've now had it for a couple of years and look back at everything that happened, how do you feel at this point as you've gone through that? And you referred to it as a tornado issue earlier in our chat. How do you feel like it's worked for Lino Lakes?
Well, first of all, I feel very proud of where we ended up, very satisfied where we ended up. It's unfortunate what had to take place, but it had to take place to solve all the problems that we had. We did offer very reasonable solutions that the other cities put thumbs down on. They just didn't think we were going to do it, is what we found out later. They just didn't think we were going to do it. And I'm the kind of guy that I'm very blunt sometimes, but I'm very honest. And I will tell you I will show you all my cards because I'm not playing games. This is what we're going to do. And so, unfortunate, but then we did it because we really did know that we would end up in a better place with this model. The more we learned about it, we were certainly willing to work with the other cities if they were reasonable and worked with us. They weren't. So we went forward, knowing we'd end up in a better spot, and we did. So one of the things that you have to look at for public safety, and that is response time. So as a fire service, I think it's UL Laboratories that comes up with these statistics about how fast a fire grows, and it grows it doubles in size every 30 seconds for the first 4 minutes. So that's pretty crucial, right? As an example of how fast we can respond now, because our police officers are cross-trained fire department or firefighters. So they have extra fire suppression equipment and extra medical equipment, and have extra training for to be a firefighter and have all that extra medical training. As an example, we had a fire. I don't think it was this summer. I think it was last summer. It was I wrote about this in the paper recently. We had an air conditioner start on fire, which is right next to the house. They called 911. The tone went out. Our cross-trained police officer responded to the call, and he's already rolling down the street. So the response is immediate. He kicks it down. He gets to the house, already knows what's going on, jumps out of his car, grabs his fire suppression equipment, runs across the yard, puts it out. I think it was like 90-some seconds, but I know certainly it was under 2 minutes from the time that 911 call went in to the time that fire was out. And that's what we have now. Just some stats from UL. Full-time unionized fire departments, their response time is on average 5 minutes and 33 seconds. Our average response time is 4 minutes and 40 seconds. I mean, that's kind of hard to dispute, where we ended up. Volunteer firefighters their average is 12 minutes. Now, the Centennial Fire District was better than that. I'm just saying that that's the national average. They were much better than that because, I mean, quite frankly, the Centennial Fire District, great group of people and did a good job. I'm not here to criticize them, you know, at all. So they were better than that, but that is the average. So, but we're at 4 minutes and 40 seconds response time right now. So that's pretty great. And plus, you know, people, oh, it's going to cost more. And actually, I think it's gone up and down just a little bit over the last couple of years. You know, and I'm talking about by $10,000 or $15,000. We are within, I think, 2% of where we were 4 years ago in cost. So, I mean, we haven't seen any increase in cost. I mean, so we have better service, and the cost hasn't gone up, and the amount of equipment that we purchased is tremendous from what we had. I mean, we updated everything. And the best thing is about when the police officer goes to the scene to respond, he's already being paid. I mean, we don't have to call out a bunch of firefighters to and pay them too. So, I mean, that's how we're keeping the costs down. That's how we're keeping the costs down and having all this great equipment to work with. So, it's been just a win-win-win. And I'm very proud of John Swenson, our Director of Public Safety, continues to do a great job. So, I mean, yeah, just nothing but pride there.
As you think back to that decision, it was, you know, you said it earlier. It was divisive. It was, you know, it was, it was really debated all over town. And you mentioned the Public Works decision is going to be might be another one of those tough decisions. Remains to fully be seen yet. How do you work as the mayor, you know, to unify people, to bring to, you know, on the council and just, you know, in the city as a whole? You know, not everyone votes free every time. No politician gets 100% of the vote, even when they're unopposed. For, you know,
right, I know.
You know,
Mickey Mouse gets a lot.
How do you feel like you work to represent everyone? Because once you're elected, you are representing everyone. How do you feel like you do that to bring some unity?
Well, you know, I've been in business for 35 years, and in business, you have to get things done. So, and sometimes you make decisions and they're not popular, and you have to do it anyway because, I mean, you have to have result. When you're in business for yourself, you have to have result. And that's kind of the way I am on the council. So, you know, I'm not going to make everybody happy all the time. But then afterwards, you do have to mend fences. So there was a lot of, you know, as an example, I guess, in how you work together and, you know, bring unity. I think it's about respecting the people and the decisions that they make because, you know, like last time we had just a ton of misinformation out there. We lost a couple of good council members. And replacing them were, you know, a couple of council members that were, you know, passing out some misinformation. I wasn't too happy about that. I wasn't too happy with them. But God darn it, the people have elected them. And so I am going to treat them with the utmost respect and learn how we can work together. And I did that. The very first meeting that we had, you know, before the meeting start, you know, go over, shake their hand, and you know, because I want to be respectful when I address them, which will be often. And I said, now, and I pronounced their last name, and I said, now, is this the accurate way to pronounce your name? They kind of looked at me like, well, you know, what are you saying? And said, no, I just don't want to mispronounce your name. I want to be accurate and I want to be respectful. And I think that if you ask them, I have given them the respect they deserve as elected by our residents. And I'm always asking their opinion and bringing them into the discussion. And what I've tried to do too over the last couple of years, you know, because I've been around on the council now 18 years and on different boards before that. And you know, my dad was mayor years ago, and so I know a lot about the city and just how it works, and you know, a lot of the things that other people don't. The perspective is history, and so what I have tried to do over the last couple of years is add that and say, well, you know, the reason why we do it this way is because of that, and you know, just kind of give a rounded perspective on topics that we're discussing and actions that we need to take, and you know, that's kind of what I've tried to do, and you know, as I'm then paying them respect and then other people get mad. It's like, it's like, well, yeah, but they called you all those names. And it's just like, well, but, my job is to get things done for the city. I have to do it with these 5 people are the ones that have to do it, and so we have to work together as a group. And I hope people would say that I've done that because I've tried. So.
Well, thank you for taking some time this evening and chatting with us, and best of luck as you move into your next term as mayor, and best of luck for the next 2 years and for the city of Lino Lakes as well. So thanks for taking your time tonight.
Thank you, Ben.
All right. I want to remind you that you can always head to northmetrotv.com for complete local election coverage. There's biographies from candidates on there, as well as more candidate spotlights like this, as well as debates between candidates, including the candidates running for Lino Lakes City Council. You can check all those out on northmetrotv.com. I've been your host, Ben Hale. Thank you for watching.